it's just a nightmare every morning waking up and going into school. And even though when she's good at what she does, but then because she gets bullied, she feels like she needs to be the best. Because if she's the best, then nobody will bully her. But regardless of what you are in life, you might always come across people what will bully you.
And I was mortified to see what was on the back of that cubicle door. There was people's names and numbers on there calling them slags. If your mum wants it, then call this number. But some of the other comments were like suicidal comments.
I was gutted when that happened. For her to actually do that and take her own life because of bullying, and it happens too often, really. That was because obviously she was a celebrity, so everybody knew about that. But people don't know about all the other children what are taking their lives. Hey guys, welcome back to Power Within. Today we're going to have a little conversation about bullying and how it affects children in school, adults in workplaces, and ourselves as well.
Yeah, obviously starting to reflect as a parent what it's going to be like for our kids in senior school. And for me, I think they're both a dream. So should they get bullied? Are they going to be targets? I would like to think not, but it's something that scares me.
And I think sometimes, hopefully, our boys are not going to be the ones what do bully as well, because that's another thing what parents don't actually know, that their child is the one what's bullying.
I didn't think of it on that day.
Did you know? Because we're all there thinking about, like we'll hear about people getting bullied at school, and then the parent goes to the other mum and says, "Your child's bullying my child," and they go, "No, they're not. My child would never do that." Or they'll ask the child, and then all of a sudden they'll go, "No, I'm not bullying him." And then the other parents, they kind of get into a bit like in a bit of an argument about it.
Yeah, and I guess that is where bullying, if you've experienced it, and I know we've experienced it maybe on different takes, the first time you might experience bullying is in schools.
Yeah. Well, it's probably different takes, because when I was younger, when I got to secondary school, just before I got to secondary school, my mum decided to take me to the opticians to give me glasses. So I had bow leg, big eyebrows, curly hair, and then they stuck me some glasses on. Maybe they were just maybe the world was testing me to see how resilient I could actually be. And it did make me the person I am today. And I did get bullied. I got bullied from probably the age 7 or 8 by the same girl who got bullied me in the secondary school as well.
And when we discuss some of the reasons later why people bully, power is one of them things. And I'm glad that eventually, although you were taught to always be kind and to walk away, I'm glad eventually you didn't.
Yeah, but again, sometimes the power is in walking away. So like my mum used to say, listen, I think I told my mum, and she was like, just walk away, love, you be the bigger person, you walk away. Because sometimes that silence is more powerful than arguing back. And that's probably one of the reasons why I don't argue, because I don't feel the need to express my thoughts all the time. So I think, well, there's not even point wasting my breath. And that feeling of that emotion of getting high rated for what? Because they're not going to listen, because they always think they're right. So when it did come down to, I think that same person bullied me until I was probably 13. And then she started a fight, and she got this other girl to bully me actually as well. So she was 2 years older than me. So I had 1 year in junior school free of bullying, because the girl went to the other school. And then when I got to the other school, straight away, then I had glasses on and more reason. So I get it. But sometimes she got this other girl to start bullying me. And so I had 2 of them, and it was constant. And it was one day, the other girl who started bullying, she pushed the other girl into me to start a fight. And I just literally beat her up. It was quite a nice feeling. So then the other girl was like, right, well, you can't beat her up, I'm going to have you after school. So then I had another fight, but I beat her as well. And sometimes I should have probably done it earlier on, But I didn't. But again, I think that was the power for me to understand the silence is still sometimes powerful to walk away. And I'm glad I did. Because now, even in my adult years, I can walk away from confrontation.
Did she leave you alone?
Yeah, she left me alone. I never got bullied for the last 3 years in my school.
Good, good. And I think
it doesn't condone the fact of like retaliation. Sometimes it is what you need to do, but not always. And I don't think it's something. It is where you do have to keep sort of walking away until they get bored. But then sometimes it is where you do have to retaliate, or even tell a parent or tell a school teacher. But the school teachers did hold the girl back in detention, with me in detention. All her friends walked home from school. And when I got let out, all my friends, well, all the people I knew was on the bus and went home. So I got let out on my own to the bus stop, and that's when she started on me, and that's when I just beat her up anyway.
And now when you said your mum used to say walk away, I picture her now as she got older anyway. She probably would have said, give her a slap, love. You know what I mean? Quieten her down. And this conversation isn't about, right, tell your kid to go and give somebody a smack. I don't know how I would be if one of our boys says, I'm having a tough time at school, I'm being bullied. Initially, I suppose that would give me rage, because as a parent, you want to wrap them up, you want to protect them from everything. And unfortunately, like when I was at school, mobile phones were just coming out. So that was even less. You didn't get bullied outside of school because phones didn't really exist. Where now, even last night, one of our boys was in his room most of the evening. It's him and his phone and his friends. And I don't want to isolate him from that. But I don't overly know what he's doing on his phone. And like I shared with you, even last week, for some reason, our phones have synced where if you Google something, I see what you've Googled and vice versa. I don't know how we've done that, but I would like somebody to inform me how to do that with the kids, because I want to know what they're searching.
But we do put their parent control on, though. That we've got that parent thing, so they can't search too much out the radar. But yeah, I think when I search something, it comes up on your phone. And I don't know, I think our Google accounts are linked. So maybe we could set their Google, like a Google account up for them. And then that interferes with, it like goes onto our phone as well. I'm not sure. We're not very tech. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I think somebody were explaining yesterday about AI or something. I'm like, listen, I haven't got a clue about stuff like that. And maybe we need to be a little bit more prompt on the internet.
Yeah, and when I think of my childhood at school, I was fortunate to not get bullied. I don't know, the more I've grown up and reflected, was I the little bully?
Was you?
Well, no, there was these three sisters. So there was three, and then there was me. And I used to walk home past their house all the time. And they would always shout comments. And, you know, when I look at what bullying is, we've got teasing, we've got banter, we've got bullying. Were they teasing me for a response? So I give it them. My upbringing was you wouldn't let somebody control you, and you definitely wouldn't be bullied. Thankfully, I didn't get bullied. But then the more I've reflected as an adult, I'm like, did I bully them? Were they teasing me so that I responded? But my actions as an adult now they're not something I would say I'm proud of. Because especially the one, I would chase her. I was quick back then. And I never knew what I was going to do if I caught her, but she was quite quick, so I never did catch her. And then the one time in school, she was there, and I had friends almost sort of like egging me on. And I punched her. She punched me back, so it was kind of effectively, like, in my eyes back then, we were just winding each other up. But as an adult, I'm like, that behaviour wasn't necessary. I may have spoilt her time at school. And I spent time in isolation after that.
Did you reflect on it?
As an adult, I'd absolutely reflect, because I think it's not nice behaviour.
No.
And then thankfully I've gone through work life where no one's ever bullied. I've never felt bullied or intimidated, but it exists. I know it exists for adults. It exists in work. That's why a lot of HR exists. And I think of our workplace now.
Because there's no HR.
We don't effectively have HR. Obviously, there's limits. But the banter, you have to have very thick skin for the banter. Sometimes I'm surprised at how harsh the banter is. But it seems to be took in light spirit. And I don't know how that crosses the line from banter to then bullying. Because it's not done with an intention to be mean.
Oh.
And, you know, when we say what is bullying, so again, this podcast isn't to teach you stupidity, but there are always topics that are relevant. But what is it? And it's, you know, the physical, the verbal, the emotional, but the intentional to cause harm.
Mm.
And I don't think I intentionally caused that girl harm back then. The three of them used to shout and wind me up, maybe for a response.
What did they used to call you?
I used to get called squarehead. And as as a kid, now you'll all look and go, yeah, she got a squarehead. I'm okay with it now. I'm all right. But this boy used to call it me as well. Forehead, squarehead. All right, Leza. I wasn't a Leza back then. But squarehead. And I used to have obviously long hair with scraped back. And I suppose the definition of my face was a little bit more square. I remember saying it to Evan a few months ago and he looked at me, he went, you do have a bit of a square head, Mummy. Well, now I'm okay with that because it's my face. I can't do a lot about it. It is the shape of me. But yeah, square head. So obviously maybe that was a bullying towards me, but I suppose my responses were learnt behaviours. But as an adult, I'd think that isn't being kind.
But your mum's fiery as well, isn't she? She's not a bully, but she's fiery. So like if, for instance, like there's times she'll kill me for saying this, but we've gone shopping before, and somebody's just like sort of maybe have gone in front of us by accident, you know, not meaning to. Well, I don't even know. You would think that she's done something really, really wrong, and she's like, "Excuse me, there's a queue here." You're like, and you know, like for me, if I would just go, "Sorry, there is actually a queue." So it's tone of the voice as well on how people come across. And I know she never means to be intentional harsh, but it sometimes is. And then you've grown up with kind of 5 of you in a household, like 5 siblings, and it's hard. And it is hard. And your mum's always been that protector, where it was just me and my mum until I was about 6, 7 years old, until she remarried. Which I had quite a nice, calm life.
And then they all come along.
And then, yeah, I had 2 brothers. But, yeah, you know what I mean? It was calm. But going back to the staff at work, we do have good banter. It is all fun and jokes. And, yes, you do have to have thick skin. But the staff give it back as well. So even like on our group chat, there's little banter things on there. And it is good spirits, I would say. I don't think anybody in our workplace would take it as bullying. Although I did get called a bully. I got called in the office once at school for bullying. And it was just jokes. It was just like a funny banter kind of thing. So maybe sometimes I do take things a little bit too far.
Yeah, I guess that's the fine line, because if you're in a workplace or if you've got kids that are in school, one might class it as banter. But if it's hurtful, if somebody's staying awake at night, if somebody doesn't like it, then they should be able to say, actually, it's a little bit too far. You know what I mean? I think your humour doesn't go too far. But that's because I think the staff are who they are. I think if we had somebody else in that circle, what they often say to each other, I'm sometimes going like, it's a bit raw. I don't know how I would take that if it was talked to me.
Yeah, but that's why your nickname in the workplace is Serious Train. Because
maybe that's bullying.
Being called Serious Train.
Yeah, it's offensive.
No, it's not. Because anybody else who has a little mod just jumps on the Serious Train with you.
Yeah.
But again, obviously, I think mine and Laura's banter's the funniest. And even some of the customers come in early when they know we're on shift because they know they're going to have like a good crack.
What would you tell someone to do if they were in a serious workplace? And I say that because I like a playful. They're in a serious workplace and they are getting bullied.
Well, you would call them into the office, wouldn't you? And say, like, you're taking this way too far. And give them a written warning. Not that anybody's ever had a written warning from us, but just, yeah, you'd have to address it, absolutely. Because I wouldn't tolerate bullying. I wouldn't. If somebody was bullying somebody and been mean, you know that I would never be mean to anyone. So, like, yes, you would have to address it. And even after work and stuff, they would only have so many chances, really, because there's been mean and then there's been banter. Like, we all have good fun. We all have a laugh. Even Christmas Secret Santas is harsh. But that's because that's our workplace. If we did that when we don't know somebody, then you can't actually... You have to get to know that person first.
Yeah, and going back to schools, I've shared this and it's something that's irritated me. So the boys played football at a secondary school near Solihull the other week. And I don't know how many parents have physically gone to a toilet within a school. I did. That Saturday I did. And I was mortified to see what was on the back of that cubicle door. I don't know if teachers go in there, whether they care. I would like to think they care. I actually phoned that school to say, look, I'm not sure if you know what's on the back of the doors, but it shouldn't be there. And I was speaking the other night, like, how hard would it be to just put a piece of Perspex on the back of a cubicle so that it can't be graffitied, or it's wipeable, or you can't actually scribble on it? But some of the comments, there was people's names and numbers on there calling them slags. If your mum wants it, then call this number. But some of the other comments were like suicidal comments. And it was, no wonder I want to kill myself at 6 a.m. coming into this crap hole. And I'm thinking, our boys are going to start reading that. I don't know who's out there who understands what's on the back of the doors. But I would say to teachers, go in and look. What can you do to remove the simplest detail? Because I see it as maybe an intimate moment. You're sitting having the toilet, you're going to read everything on that door. There's no escaping what's on that door. And I would like to think as a parent, you would want that to be removed. I generally would be an advocate to say schools should change the material on the back of the door so it's not easily done. I don't know. It's something that sits really heavy with me because it is so easily seen by probably 200 people a day.
And that's the thing, is like you've got a client in who gets bullied at school, and it's just a nightmare every morning waking up and going into school. And even though she's good at things, she's good at what she does, as in she's got good activities. But then because she gets bullied, she feels like she needs to be the best of that. Because if she's the best, then nobody will bully her. But regardless of what you are in life, you might always come across people what will bully you or will say something bad about you or give you bad comments, share funny photos on social media, call you all the names what you shouldn't, makes you feel really low. So even though that she wants to become the best version of her, thinking that will make the bullies go away, she needs to probably stand up for the bullies now, or like speak to somebody about it, somebody professional who can actually intervene, because her life at school is not fun, and she has mentioned about suicide, and that's when she's come to see you. So she has took some professional help, which is nice. But it's hard because you've then got her parent in and said, will you listen to what she's got to say, because she didn't want to say it in front of you on your own. And I think there has been some interaction with schools on her behalf. But again, it's still happening online.
It started in school and she's now just in college. And it's almost followed her through. She thought she'd sort of close that door. She's becoming an adult and adults won't bully.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she's having it all over again. What she said, and this is, we'll share some of the experience with it, but what she said is, if I can become the best, then it won't matter. And as a therapist and a hypnotherapist, I think that's false, because she could be the best. You might be out there being bullied and having the same thought process. If I become the best at work, then I'm not going to get bullied. The reality is that vulnerability is still there.
Because they'll bully you for being the best. So even regardless of where you are in life, you will get that backlash somewhere else. And maybe that's probably the reason why I'm not actually that social. Although I am social. If I go into an event and stuff, I can be social. But maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't like social places, probably because of my past experience of being bullied. And that's the thing. It does come into your adulthood all the time, where it creeps in. I know when I'm in work, I'm in like my safe space. When I'm at home, I'm in my safe space. When we do therapy, I'm in my safe space. But when we do go to events, like big events, that sometimes creeps in because I'm unaware of what's out there. I don't know if people are saying stuff behind our back. I don't really mind people saying stuff behind our back. It is what it is. I'm probably thicker skinned now than what I ever was, and I suppose even back then, getting bullied, although I've always been a soft character, it toughened me up. And then obviously when I was 17, I joined the army, which toughened me up even more. So maybe sometimes in life it gave me that edge, I would say. It's gave me my personality of what it is now.
Yeah, and that's a positive experience. This girl, she's still growing and developing in who she is. And I actually said to her, we have to do the work so that you effectively don't hear the comments anymore, because the more they become irrelevant, the bully will get bored. And I said to her, imagine having the ability to tell this said girl, you're boring. Like, change the comment because it's actually a little bit old now. Like, you take the power out of them words.
Absolutely.
Like that girl and the one lad specifically calling me squarehead back then, I guess, don't laugh, I guess I didn't want him to keep saying it so that everyone else thought it.
Yeah.
Now as an adult in my own skin, my definition is probably a little bit more square than round, and I can be comfortable with that. So it doesn't matter if I bumped into him again. I'm in a completely different position anyway now, but if I bumped into him again, that might be his first comment. You're right, squarehead. My response would be a lot sharper because them words don't hurt anymore. So I said to her, imagine saying to said person, you are boring now. It's a little bit old. Find a new joke. I said, she won't know what to say.
Yeah. And that's it. Think about the words, what you can say to them, like, you are. Like, how boring are you? Change the story, change the record, and it is sometimes the power of words instead of retaliation. And I think for me, I was always, like I said before, brought up as being kind and being like thoughtful for others, although others weren't very thoughtful to me. So I think, but again, it toughened me up pretty early on. And yeah, and now I know I can kind of handle myself in them situations. But I don't retaliate anyway. I am quite subtle.
Yeah, and as adults, I don't think we've experienced it very much. Like,
I think I did have a confrontation actually years ago when I was in the club. These set of guys came in and I wouldn't let them in. And I was on my own. I think it was like maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon where there were changeovers. And there was literally hammering me because I wouldn't let them in. And then they called me racist. So that was the thing. So they were calling me, putting it on me why I wouldn't let them in. I'm like, you're not, like, none of you are coming in. You've not got any ID. And I knew that these guys had kicked off before in the club. And I said, you've been in before. So unless you show me some ID, you're not coming in. And then they were saying, oh, what are you? You're a man. You're this, you're that. Look at you. and they were just literally hammering me. And because of, obviously, the past, I'm like, yeah, I am. What's your problem? What can you do about it? What are you actually going to do? And they didn't know what to say, because every time I gave them something back or agreed with what they were saying, look at state of you, yeah? Look at state of me. Oh, you're on minimum wage. I earn more than you. Obviously, they're like selling what they're selling. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Not realising that the Range Rover outside is actually ours, but I didn't have to say to them, well, that's my car outside. I earn more than you, because I didn't have to give them any like validation of me. I was like, yeah, I'm on minimum wage. Yeah,
And you're
like, yeah,
you're actually quite good at that. Even a couple of weeks ago, there was that kid at the bar when the boxing was on, and like we've not talked about gay or homophobic stuff really, because it's not something that really creeps up. And I wouldn't say he was necessarily homophobic. Was he trying to educate himself? I thought he was being a dick.
It was. Yeah.
There was a couple next to us, same sex couple, and it wasn't going down very well. And you have the most time for people like that, just to be polite, I think. But there's certain comments that he was saying. For me, there's a trigger, and I'm like, I don't want him in my space. And you were humouring him, and
but he got bored of humouring.
Yeah.
So, but when you start retaliating and going, mate, what are you like? What you got to say about that? There's a gay couple there, and where you're in the wrong bar. But he wanted that. That's what he wanted. He wanted you to retaliate. And I said to you, like, babe, shut up. Like, let me deal with this. And I was laughing with him. And like, well, it's our bar. So if you don't want to be in here, then that's completely fine. But you're not getting another beer anyway. And me being in that tone, but he's like, well, I will get another beer because I'll get served. I'm like, well, you're not going to get served because I'm stood here anyway. And like, although I'm at the other side of the bar drinking, you're in our bar and in our space, so you can't be disrespectful. But then he's like, well, just educate me on stuff. And then he was speaking about children. I'm like, well, we've got 2 children. And he just didn't know how. Although he was trying to be intimidating, he didn't get that from me. So he got bored and left. But you and the other girls were about to just jump him.
No, I just think he's in this day and age, and I know it still happens. I think we're really blessed that we don't feel a lot of stigma around the fact that we're married, because I don't take it well. Like when we're in Egypt, and I know it's a country that it's not necessarily accepted about, but I'm still a human being. I think that's the fine line of my tolerance is you can't speak to another human being and be judgmental the way people are. And sadly it happens.
It does, but again, if you can disregard that and not acknowledge that, then you walk away feeling better rather than walking away feeling agitated and angry. Because you did turn around and I said, babe, if you don't, let's just carry on walking, otherwise we're going to end up we're going to end up like cat food. So let's just carry on walking. And because you did retaliate to them, but then they enjoyed that. And that's what I'm saying to you. Sometimes if you can walk away and just do little one-liners of like, hey, you're boring me now, see you later. Is that all you've got? Because it manipulates them and it puts them down instead of them putting you down. And I think there's just a choice of words.
Yeah, and I liked the saying, we've said it before, if people are trying to bring you down, it means they're below you. And that kid in the bar the other week, he did seem like an idiot. He wasn't carrying himself well, and he's fortunate he's in the bar that he was, because I think if he was in the middle of town, he might have got hurt.
Yeah. But again, he was talking to me, made a little beeline for me, but again, I wasn't giving him what he needed. So he was just diffusing the situation.
And you are a better character than me. Again.
It's not about being a better character. It's just, and that's the reason why we compliment each other well, because sometimes I need you to just go, just sort him out because I've had enough. Yeah. But I was actually all right in that space.
I think he was too loud in the space he was. Like the girl at the side looked like she wanted to get him in a headlock. And I'm like, well, that's not okay. So there has to be a middle ground because he can't keep saying what he was saying.
No, he can't.
Especially as loud as he was, because it is, if that was continuous, I would class that as bullying, because you're bullying someone based on their sexuality, which ultimately has no business to him. So yes, I become louder in that sense, just from a human being point of view. Like, when that celebrity passed away, the whole world was about being kind. Be kind, do this. And it worked for probably a few months. Everyone was wearing T-shirts, paying into charities, be kind. And then the world just goes to pot again, and it's just angry. And
that's the thing. And she is, I was gutted when that happened. Yeah. You know, for her to actually do that and take her own life because of bullying. And it happens too often, really. That was because obviously she was a celebrity, so everybody knew about that. But people don't know about all the other children what are taking their lives. So I think it is something what does need addressing more, bullying. But if you are getting bullied, then do go online and actually seek out somebody who can help you, rather than feeling vulnerable and Googling how to take your life.
And maybe even later on, talk to your kids about it, because I didn't even think of it as, what if our kid bullied? I just assumed they wouldn't. What would we do?
I'd have to take them to the other. And this is a problem, because when I had that fight, obviously my mum knew I had a fight because the girl bit my arm. And so then she was saying, well, I'm taking you to school tomorrow, I'm going to see teachers. But then internally, I didn't want that. I didn't want him to go to the school, because then it's like, you're a grass, you're this, you're that. So it does stem a lot. But the teachers do need to know and do need to address it. But the teachers also need to address it in a better way than what sometimes they do, because they call it out and everybody knows about it. But it is about managing, and maybe for them two people to speak to each other alone and see why that person's bullying them, and just for that other person to tell them exactly how you're making them feel. Because that then it's a bit like a therapy session, a bit like a couples therapy session, for instance. You always end up speaking to two of the people, and they air out how they're feeling. And I know it's not always the best scenario, because the one who's getting bullied is intimidated by the other one. But that other person might not actually understand how that person's feeling deep down, like suicidal.
Yeah, what would you do if you're 15 and your actions are the reason why somebody takes their own life? How would you live with yourself? Actually, it's disgraceful. So yeah, as adults and as parents, it's definitely something that we're very open with the kids in this house. And they are kind, which is why I categorically say we wouldn't have it on the other foot. But it is like, how can we educate ourselves for it? But it's realising that, like, bullying is never about you. If you've been bullied, it wasn't about you, it was about that girl. That girl wanted that power, that control, that authority. Look at me. And yeah, maybe me growing up, I had two older sisters that had gone to school first, so they had already set the tone, so that when I went there, I was part of that tone. But maybe my tone was always different. I stayed on playing sport. I knew I couldn't skip school because otherwise my mum wouldn't let me go training. Like, things like that kept me on the straight and narrow. But my pathway was almost set for when I walked into school. The teacher only heard my surname and kicked me out of class. I hadn't even done anything. So there's almost like that character that you have to start portraying, even if it wasn't you.
Yeah.
And that I'm saying about them girls, because maybe they will talk about me in a light where I wasn't kind either. And I'll go, I apologise.
I'm about to say maybe you should
I apologise. If I was to ever see them again and we would have a conversation and we were all adults, I maybe didn't make their school life pleasant. They didn't make my walk home pleasant, and we would shake on it and go, no, we're adults, let's educate somebody else so that they're not having the same school day that maybe we had.
Yeah.
But that's me as an adult to say, maybe I was an asshole and I apologise.
Good. And on that note of the apology, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Be safe.